Welcome.
So, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So, I am Jose Silva. I work at Critical Manufacturing, and we are using Angular to own words since 2015. And actually, the first talk I gave about Angular 2 was at Google DevFest Porto, the first edition. So I think this is a bit different from the previous presentations that you experienced today, because instead of talking of something new and exciting and something that it's right on the edge of things, today I bring you a more boring topic. I bring you what actually works and what is actually in production around the world, and what actually makes companies run, okay? So, who here is using Angular on any form? Okay, so I think there are more experts in this room than myself, okay? So, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. And we at Critical Manufacturing, what we do is we try to make companies efficient. Okay, our main segments are semiconductors and solar panel companies, but what we do is we help them deliver their products to their customers. And today we are going to talk a bit why we do what we do, why use Angular and not React or other frameworks, and get to show you a bit of real-time or real-life applications, and actually live code so that you can see things working. So, starting with the basics, okay? When we go to build a web application, especially for an information system, like in our case, you need to think that these kind of information systems in companies, they run for ages, okay? It's easier for you to change your wife or husband than to actually change the system in the factory, okay? These systems keep running for 20, 30 years. So whenever you choose a technology, you expect that the technology is going to be there for a lot of time. So when we set out to build a new interface for our MES, we looked at what we actually needed from the framework. So we needed a framework that supported different platforms. We needed something that was prepared for the cloud, that we could either use a keyboard and a mouse or use touch devices, or now with augmented reality, we could use glasses and other kind of devices, and also support different form and sizes in devices. So what we did was, okay, instead of focusing on a framework, let's focus on standards, because standards are going to be here for a lot of time. Frameworks, it depends. So the motto of our team is, the only thing we can be prepared is that we are not going to be prepared ever for the future. So let's try to keep things on standards and keep the basics going. So why Angular? So it's based on standards. That was the first key point for us. It's component-based, so we can have large teams working on the same interface at the same time. It's performant. It's a complete framework. It has different modules beginning on the router, on HTTP, and so on. So you get different modules, but from the same library. It supports server-side rendering. Not a huge point for us, because most of our applications are internal applications for the industry, so we don't need SEO. But it is important, especially going for the cloud. And it's born with TypeScript. In our company, most of the developers were used to C#, and it was important to give them a technology and a language that was not so different, but yet available on the web. It supports lazy loading. The application, it's a bit large, so yesterday I counted the lines of code. Today, our web application has something like 600,000 lines of code. So, and it's getting bigger by the day. And for us, I know I am on a Google event, but for us it was important that companies like Microsoft were on board with these kind of things, because they actually, in the industry, when you go to companies, they like the name. Very easy to use language, especially for the ones coming from strongly typed languages. It allows you to have the flexibility of JavaScript if you want to, but it allows you also to have the strong typed that keep a large team working at a good pace. It was important back when we picked the language to be able to do debugging on things. Now this is more and more current with web technologies, but we need to be aware that this was not always the case. And also a strong point for us was we need something that expands across multiple platforms. Not only the web, but sometimes we need to go to the desktop, and we want to reuse what we have in order to keep the reuse of code as big as possible. So I don't know from the audience who have used Angular Universal? Okay, no one? Okay. First time hearing about this? So this is basically what runs on the server. So if you need server-side rendering, it is this component of Angular that will help you do that. This is a community-based component for Angular, but is also recognized by the Angular team as something that they keep in mind in tests and to avoid breaking changes. So today, if you go to Angular Universal GitHub, you will find different implementations so that you can use Angular with a server in Node.js, ASP.NET Core, or even Go and PHP. So there are multiple languages being supported. Then this allows you to introduce your existing application with your existing server-side technology and bring it to the client side as well, and merging the two together. Well, this is all great and so on, but not always is easy for when you are actually developing things to actually implement what you need. But I'm bringing you screenshots of things we did in Angular, and I'm also going to show you live code examples at the end. So this is one of our schedule views. What you are seeing was entirely built on Angular. It's not a component from another framework. Actually, this is in-house development. And it allows you to see, in this case, the planning for a given shop floor, and also interact with the blocks. So those blocks are draggable, and you can change the dates in runtime. One more example about this, and another completely different in an interface to build diagrams and workflows, also completely built on top of Angular and running in companies in production. But as I was saying, this goes way beyond the web. And you can also combine Angular with Electron, for instance. From the others, I saw some hands with Angular. Does anyone did something with Angular plus Electron? Okay, one hand, I see. Was it a good experience? It kind of works, right? So what we did is our solution, we do have a cloud solution, but mostly our customers, they want the solution running on their data centers. Okay, so we need something to deploy the solution, kind of an offline installer. And we did the installer itself using Electron and Angular. And as you were going to see, and you can already see from the colors, What we did was it was not initially planned, but we saw that the framework we were building for the web interface, it could be entirely reused for desktop applications. So what we did was we ported everything so that we use relative paths instead of absolute paths, and everything works fine on Electron, and we can reuse the same components everywhere. So why does the web is the future? What we did, instead of building a website directly from scratch in Angular, we built a framework on top of it. Because there are a couple of things that we can reuse then if we build the same framework. And I don't know from here, who builds enterprise applications? More than building something that you do a website, it's for an event, for instance, and after the event you scrap the website and you build an entirely new one. What it's going to happen is that for many, many years you are going to support that application. And if you need to do that, you need to start thinking on maintainability, things that are expectable because the team is going to rotate. The team you have on day one, it's definitely not the team you have on year 3 or 4. Perhaps only 1 or 2 guys are still on the team. So what we did was we built a framework on top of Angular that allowed us to build the entire set of applications in the company with it. Okay, so this enabled us to move people from one team to the other without having to explain everything from scratch every time. And the framework we built is around this principle. We have what we call the product or the core. It's the things we do in-house. But we have an extensibility layer that allows customization. So even if a customer needs to do something specific, he can, because he can build the same way we build internally. He can build its own set of features. And with this, as I'm going to show you, you can build applications and new pages and widgets or whatever with 2-3 lines of code. Okay? So I'm going to jump to live code, and please be patient with me. I usually don't do live code sessions because it's risky. But today, I thought, well, you guys deserve seeing something real instead of just PowerPoint. Okay, so typical dev environment with Visual Studio Code, TypeScript, and Angular. I already have here our product running. So this is the entire set of the product. And it has, well, multiple capabilities. I don't know if anyone owns a plant, a factory, but I'm going to assume not, so not relevant for you, the MES functionality. What I'm going to show you is you can build the same thing, and what we have here is the base layer of the framework. You can build everything. You can use the same UI for other things. And this is one case. This is one we are going to work in a few minutes. And this one is actually our documentation portal that is also built on top of the same framework in Angular. Okay? As you are going to see, let me see if I can find something. So you are going to see controls and grids and stuff here. And if I go here to our documentation portal, we actually built a playground where we essentially reuse we showcase the components of the framework itself. And it allows you to see the code that is actually running behind. So in this case, the code you are seeing here rendered is actually composed of 3 elements. The viewer part in HTML, the code behind part, the component itself, built in Angular. And in this case, CSS, it could be less, could be Sass or another preprocessing language. And with this, we can essentially actually show to customers and give training within the company on how to build something with our framework. So let me add content. You have the button there. And I can actually add code here. So this is straight Angular code. In this case, I'm binding to the click event. And whenever I go here and say, so what we are basically doing with this model, we are compiling the code itself on the UI. Okay, when you run, when I press the update example, I have the TypeScript compiler loaded on the browser, and I'm doing everything client-side. So there is no server-side call, and I can actually, not that I think you are doubting me, but I can show you. So no server-side code is running. You can compile everything on the web, and just plug and play. You can have new functionality in your interface without the need for complete deployments and stuff like that. So questions so far? I can see, I have the idea that it's about 2 megabytes, something like that. But at the end, if you want, I can show you the details on how it's built. The scope of this portal that you are seeing here is that they can try out what they want before actually coding anything. I'm going to show you in a bit what they can do. We kind of have a low-code solution where they can build their own interfaces. But this is most used for training purposes, either in-house or client-side. So any question? Okay, so if not, I'm going to show you here an example. So essentially what I have here is what we, in a team within the company, they would eventually do. I have a package here, I called demo.demo, okay? It's like namespace, name of the company, dot name of the thing I'm doing. And I have an app. In this case, it's a web app. It could be an Electron app or on Android with Apache Cordova. We also use it. So it could be any kind of app that runs JavaScript code. And this app here on the configuration, it's loading some things we have in the product itself, and it's loading the this demo package. And then on the demo package, I can actually, using Yeoman, say, okay, I need a new component for the application, and I'm going to call it my GDG page. And the system is going to ask me a few things to help building the component itself. So the first thing it's going to ask is, okay, can I access this through an URL? So this is a registered page in my application. And I'm going to say, yeah. What is the URL? I'm going to say, okay, it's demo/GDG, for instance. And it's essentially, it's creating the component itself, it's building the TypeScript code. And if I go to my web page and I say, okay, so let's see if this actually works. And I have a new page here with an hello world. It's the default content of the component. Okay, but I could start doing things here. So if I do this, I refresh it, I have the content there. And eventually, we built a set of components that we can reuse across the entire ecosystem. And this is pretty much what you would do on an Angular application. So I can search through the components I want. I can use the same one I was using on the other portal. And I can say, okay, I need this. So in Angular, you can build your components and then aggregate them in modules. And in order to reuse them in another module, you need to import the previous module into the new one. So I'm doing that. Let me turn on the watcher. Well, now I need to actually use it. So and I could actually go to the documentation portal and see exactly how I can use this. So in this case, it has a property called main title. So I could do something like, and say, this is my main title. And here you have the component being used. Okay, I'm not showing you this to sell the framework itself because I don't know, and thinking not only on the project you are doing, but the entire set of projects across the company, it really makes an impact on what you are doing and gives you the ability of rotate people within the teams or outside your teams to other teams without having all the ramp up you need when you are changing technologies and so on. So what we did was we looked at Angular, and while we were doing it, it was not our first goal with it. But when we were developing, at one point in time, we said, well, this actually works well, better than we expected. We can use this for a lot more than we were thinking in the beginning. And we start building from that. And our entire set of UIs is built on top of this mini framework we we built around Angular, and allow us to deploy multiple applications without the effort of relearning everything when we jump from one application to the other. I don't know if you questions. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a question of someone that already has the problem, or had the problem at least. So versioning components is essential to keep the things working. Every package that you see here, and I can show you the JSON file. That is, in this case, it's this one. But if you look at here, every package that is here, and a lot more that we have, these are all NPM packages, all versioned. And then this documentation portal that goes with the application is also versioned. I think the screen is being cut, but you can see the version there. And when going through the API, we have this set of components and classes and stores and so on. They are all documented. We actually learned a thing or two from the Angular team. Our comments in the classes are done in Markdown, so that we can then take the comments and build the description. So this description that you are seeing here, this is written within the code itself with Markdown. And then we developed a tool that goes through the code using the TypeScript compiler and fetches the comments and renders it in HTML. And it's all done with automated builds. So every day we get a new version. Questions? So this was a little bit of what we do. If you have questions, we can meet outside in coffee breaks and so on. If not, I can switch back to the PowerPoint. You have my contacts there. So if you need something, just send an email or add me on WhatsApp and we can talk.
Okay, no more questions for Jose? Okay, thank you to Jose.
Thank you very much.
So we are a little ahead of